I always thought the worst thing a parent could steal from their child was their innocence. Turns out, it was merely an account balance. Specifically, $235,000. I'm Alex, 30, a software engineer. My life is usually color-coded, my coffee is black, and my goal was to close on a 2-bedroom condo by 32. That money wasn't a lottery win. It was 7 years of saying no to weekend trips, yes to overtime, and one substantial chunk of inheritance from my grandmother that I was meticulous about protecting. It was the down payment, the emergency fund, and my entire future security rolled into a neat, high-yield package. The account was technically joint, opened when I was 16, so my parents could teach me financial responsibility. The key word being was. Until that Tuesday, things were blissfully normal. My relationship with my parents, Mark and Susan, was the standard adult balancing act. Weekly Sunday dinners, a little political disagreement, a lot of polite avoidance of their increasingly erratic financial suggestions. They'd always been a bit financially adventurous. Dad had a string of failed sure-thing investments over the years, and Mom's retail therapy was legendary, but it was their problem, not mine. I'd recently sent them a text, a casual check-in, saying I was pre-approved for the mortgage and starting to put offers down. I thought they'd be thrilled. They responded with 2 thumbs-up emojis and a heart. Looking back, that heart emoji was a tiny, digital stab wound. Day 1. The email wasn't from a Nigerian prince, it was from my bank, large withdrawal alert. I clicked the link, already assuming phishing, only to find the bank's legitimate portal. The $235,412 was now a neat $412. My hands were shaking, but my brain was already running the fraud checklist. The money hadn't been hacked. It had been wired out in 2 large transfers over a 48-hour period. I called my dad first. No answer. Then my mom. She picked up on the 3rd ring, her voice a little too light. "Oh, honey, don't worry about that," she chirped. "It's just for something really important. We'll talk about it tonight. Trust me, you're going to be so proud of us." Proud. Right. I took a deep breath, trying to keep the methodical, spreadsheet guy part of my brain in charge. "Mom, I need you to be very clear with me," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Where is the $235,000? That was my down payment." "It's an investment, Alex. A wonderful opportunity we couldn't let pass. It's for the family," she insisted, injecting the word family with the gravitas of a Supreme Court ruling. "It's a huge step forward for all of us. Think of it as a loan you made to us. Interest-free. Isn't that generous? Generous? Stealing the anchor out from under my life raft and calling it a free boat ride." I hung up and immediately called my lawyer, Jessica, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who usually handled my lease agreements. I knew instantly this was no longer a conversation. It was a legal dispute. 72 hours later, Jessica had pulled the transaction details. The money hadn't gone into some murky stock market account. It went into escrow for a house. Their house. I drove over there that Saturday, not for dinner, but for the confrontation. The air in their living room was thick with forced cheer. "We bought the lake house," Dad announced, holding up 2 flutes of cheap champagne. "We closed on Friday. Isn't it wonderful? You can visit any time." The lake house. A ramshackle property they'd been coveting for years, far too expensive for their actual means, situated 3 states away. They'd used my entire savings for the down payment and closing costs. "You stole my money?" I stated, the champagne flute still in my hand, unused. I was so calm, I almost sounded bored. That's my defense mechanism, the dry ice of pure shock. Mom placed a hand over her heart, performing a magnificent Oscar-worthy display of maternal hurt. "Stole? Alex, how dare you? It's our money too." The account was joint. The money was from my salary and Grandma's inheritance, deposited after I turned 18. "You never put a dime in it," I countered, pulling out a printed summary of the account history, every deposit neatly labeled. "I have the deposit slips. It's legally considered a gift to me, even if the account structure was clumsy." Then came the line. The absolute, jaw-dropping punchline that became the title of this entire mess. Dad leaned forward, his face serious and paternal.
"We needed it, son. It secures our future, which secures yours. You should be grateful we gave you this opportunity to contribute to the family legacy. You're young, you can earn it back. Grateful for having my future cannibalized to fund their retirement vanity project." I finally understood the look on my lawyer Jessica's face when I told her what they did. It was pity mixed with a professional excitement only a lawyer sees when they spot easy grounds for a lawsuit. 1 week later,
I hadn't spoken to them since the confrontation. They left me 3 voicemails, all defensive, none apologetic. The final one was Mom crying that I was ruining the family dream. Jessica and I were working fast. The first step was filing for an injunction. We needed to legally stop them from selling the lake house or draining their other accounts until we could establish clear ownership of the funds. Since the money went directly from a joint account to a purchase, it established a clear, traceable path. The key here, Alex, Jessica explained, is proving misappropriation and undue influence. The joint account is a hurdle, but the paper trail is golden. We'll claim they acted as fiduciaries, managing the account for your sole benefit, and violated that trust. We also filed a lien on the new property. This was the strategic move. The lien meant they couldn't sell or refinance the lake house without paying me back first. It turned their dream home into a legal liability. The moment they were served those papers was a moment of deep, icy satisfaction. The texts started immediately after the legal papers were served. The tone shifted from defensive to openly aggressive. Mom, text message. How could you do this to your own parents? We raised you better than this. This will ruin your father's health. Think about what you're doing. Dad, your grandmother would be furious. That money was meant to help the family, not split it apart. I showed the texts to my friend circle, who are my chosen family. My buddy Mike, a finance guy, was livid. They're trying to guilt trip you into abandoning $250,000. That's not family. That's corporate fraud with a parental mask. My sister Clara, who lives overseas, was the only one who didn't immediately take sides, but her silence spoke volumes. They've done smaller, similar things to me, Alex. I always just accepted it as Dad being Dad. Be careful, but I don't blame you. That tiny sliver of validation was crucial. I maintained no contact. I changed my bank accounts, passwords, and even canceled the phone plan that was technically still under their name from my college days. I was severing every possible digital and financial connection. It was liberating, like cutting free from a heavy anchor I didn't realize I was dragging. 6 weeks later, we were at mandatory mediation. This was our chance to resolve it before a full-blown court battle. The atmosphere in the conference room was sterile and silent. My parents brought their own lawyer, a small-town attorney who looked visibly uncomfortable. We sat at opposite ends of a huge mahogany table. My parents looked older, beaten down, but still radiating that stubborn, entitled defiance. Jessica laid out our case, the wire transfers, the deposit history, the texts proving acknowledgement of debt, even if they framed it as a loan, and the lien. My parents' lawyer offered a settlement, a promissory note. They would pay me back the $235,000 over 20 years, at 1% interest. I looked at the piece of paper, then at my parents. 2 decades. I'd be 50. It was an insult disguised as a compromise. No, I stated clearly. My terms are simple. You secure a loan against the house, pay me the principal in full within 90 days, or we go to court and I pursue not only the principal but also punitive damages for the stress and the cost of litigation. My dad finally broke. He slammed his fist on the table, violating the calm tone of the mediation. You greedy little bastard. We gave you everything. We raised you. That is worth more than any money. You didn't give me everything, Dad, I replied, leaning forward, finally dropping the calm veneer to deliver the punch. You gave me a life. I am paying you back by letting you keep the lake house. But you didn't give me the money. I earned that. And now, you will pay me back, just like any other common criminal. The mediator stepped in. Jessica whispered to me, "That was perfect. Now, we wait." 3 months later, I got the call from Jessica. They did it, Alex. They secured a second mortgage on the lake house to pay off the lien. The wire transfer for the full amount, $235,000, plus the legal costs we demanded, is hitting your new account by 5 p.m. It was over. No trial. No drawn-out public spectacle. Just a clinical, clean transaction. They saved their lake house, and I got my life back. I bought my condo 3 weeks later. A modest, 2-bedroom unit with terrible wallpaper, but it was mine, and no one could ever sign their name onto that deed without my permission. I didn't send them a photo of the keys. I didn't tell them the address. The financial relationship was severed, and the personal one was effectively dissolved. The emotional closure didn't come with the wire transfer, though. It came a few weeks later when I got a cryptic text from my mom. "We miss you, son, but we had to do what was best for us. Don't hold grudges." I didn't respond. I deleted the thread. The ultimate lesson I learned wasn't about contracts or liens. It was about the difference between family and fiduciary duty. My parents viewed my success as a collective family resource they had access to. I learned that trust, when it involves hundreds of thousands of dollars, must be backed up by legal documents, regardless of the blood connection. I lost my parents that year. But I gained an invaluable understanding of boundaries, self-reliance, and asset protection. I also gained a beautiful, albeit slightly ugly wallpapered, condo. If you take anything away from my story, let it be this. Look at your accounts. Look at the names on them. And never, ever confuse a joint signature with shared ownership. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need to protect yourself from the most. I still have Sunday dinner, but now it's with Mike and Clara over video chat. And I finally started saying yes to brunch. You won't believe how much better a mimosa tastes when you know your parents can't steal the money you paid for it with. And that, my friends, is the story of how I became grateful. Grateful to be financially independent, legally protected, and entirely free.